Alright, this will be a quick tutorial on how to wire a system sensor MDL sync module. To a device. So for this demonstration and for demonstration purposes, I'm using my System Sensor Classic P121575. So what you'll need is a screwdriver, batteries, or you can use the input from your panel. So this would go and hook up directly to the NAC circuits on your panel, but I'm not going to hook it up to my panel for this demonstration. I'm going to use 3 9-volt batteries. You will need jumper wires. I'll get into this later. And you'll need 2 sets of wire. One will go into the device and one will go out of the device into the alarm. So I've seen some videos on YouTube and I feel like they don't really go over it as much, so I'm going to try to do that. So excuse me if I'm talking quietly, I'm just kind of like going to talk quiet for this because I don't want to bother anyone. So the terminals that we will be using on your system sensor MDL module would be zone 1, power out and power in. So these 2 right here. You'll use zone 1, power in and power in, positive and minus. There, sorry, I said power out and power in. These are both power out terminals here. Just one's positive, one's negative. And same for power in, one's positive and one's negative. And the other one that we'll be using will be horn input, positive and negative. So if you were using an actual panel, the NAC that you would use for your horns would connect into here. The ones that is your strobe circuit would go into here. So if you have audible silence on your panel, these would be your horn NAC circuits and these would be your strobe NAC circuits. But since I'm not hooking up to a panel with 2 NACs available, I'm only going to have basically 1 NAC. I'm going to have the 2 wires jumped, or 2 terminals jumped. So we won't be using any of the other terminals, so I went ahead and closed them all up. So the ones that we will be using are the ones with the screws taken out. So let's hook it up to the panel. So let's take some wire. I think it's this one. No. I'm going to take this wire. I'm going to make sure my connections are nice. So I'm just going to twist them up so there's no loose strands. And I'm going to hook them up. Remember, positive with positive. So in this wire, this little white stripe here, let me focus it. There we go. There's a white stripe that runs down the wire. That means it's the positive wire. So I'll hook that up into the positive of zone 1. And I'll put the negative into the negative of zone 1. Now what's interesting is that it has multiple zones, so you could hook up technically multiple NACs to it. So I'm not going to screw them in yet because I'm going to add our jumper wires. If you do not use the jumper wires, then they'll basically just be permanent in audible silence. So we want to be able to have it selectable. So we're going to put in our jumper wires. So this will go into positive of zone 1 and it'll jump into horn input positive. So let me set it in. There we go. Now we can screw in the positive terminals here that we're using. And now we'll screw in the other set of positive terminals. I'm going to use the there. So now that's what it should look like. So now we'll hook up the negative 2 terminals here. So we have the negative in the terminal, and now we'll grab our jumper wire. I'm going to make sure the wires are nicely twisted. There's no loose strands, because you don't want any loose strands touching any terminals it's not supposed to be touching, because then that could make it not function properly, or it could potentially ruin the sync module. So now our jumper wire's in. We'll tighten the terminal, so now it's good. There we go. Oh, that didn't go in right. Alright, there we go. Now that I have some storage cleared up, I'll finish the video. So that's why I was cutting out there, because my phone was telling me I had low storage. So now that we have these wires jumped, we'll hook up this end. So we'll hook up power out positive and power out negative. So just remember which end you're using and what wire is going to be your positive. So on here, what I'm talking about is on here, this wire has a white stripe I already showed you. Just remember that that is your positive. I made a mistake earlier when wiring, not the one I was recording, but before then, I accidentally hooked up the negative to the positive of the alarm, and it didn't work. So if it doesn't work, then make sure you have your wiring correct. So now let's hook it up. And we will tighten these screws. Alright, that is all you have to do for the module wiring, and that is really about it. The next that we have to do is a simple part, and that is just connecting the wires to your device. So if your device is 4-wire, make sure that it is jumped. This is 4-wire, but it came with jumper wires because I think all classics do, which is a nice feature that System Sensor provides with them. So now we'll hook it up, remembering the white wire was our positive, so we're going to hook it up to the positive of our alarm. And I'm just using the classic because it is a System Sensor device. I don't have any other System Sensor devices other than the chime strobe, which I tried earlier. And I also have the advance and the mass, but I'm not going to use the advance for obvious reasons, and the chime strobe, I tried it and it was a little weird, so I'm going to use the classic. And I do have tape over it because I do not feel like annoying people, so I made it quieter. So that is all the wiring that we have to do for this. So obviously if you had other devices hooked up that you want to have all synchronized, you would have these jumped out. So you'd basically have these 2 wires, and then you would have the same positive and negative going in here, and then that would run out to your next device. Alright, now we can get on to testing the module. Let's pull it into frame. There we go. So we'll first test it with doing regular horn and strobe action to the power. Oh, one of my wires came out of the battery. There we go. Now we'll take out the jumper to do audible silence. there we go, audible silence. So that is the cool thing about the sync module, is you can do audible silence with it on 2-wire, which is really cool. So I'm going to stop it there, and I just want to point out here at the bottom, you might notice it says, let me move this up, it says for non-spectral or temporal coded output, you make sure that this jumper back here, if you want it, if there's non-spectral alert devices, which is cool that you can sync up non-spectral alert devices with this module, like you could hook up a wheel lock device or basically anything and it'd synchronize to temporal. I don't know if it would synchronize to strobe, but it would synchronize the horns. And you plug that in, so now the jumper leads are connected. That's for non-spectral alert devices. But since I'm using a spectral alert classic, I'm going to turn it off. So I'm going to have it so that the jumper, as you can see, is 1 prong over. So there we go. It is 1 prong over. So that's what is making it do the audible silence. It's because I have it jumped like that. Focus. I think that is all I really need to show for the sync module on how to wire it up. So I gave you a quick demonstration of the audible silence and its synchronizing, and I'll show you once again the wiring. If it'll focus. There we go. So if you have any questions, leave it in the comments and I'll hopefully be able to answer them all. So that is it for the video on how to wire up this sync module. I'll see you in the next one, and that'll be it.